Oh, so welcome to the session today. So very quickly, I'll give you an outline of what we're going to be doing today. We will, so I'll introduce you to Project Edu Access, to OPP, which is Oxford Pakistan program. I'll introduce you to your panelists, and then they'll take you over some basics of making your applications for higher education abroad. And then we move to the Q&A. Before we, I think, move to the slides, we'll have Amna talk a bit about sort of applications, and then we'll move to the main part of the presentation. But before that, Hassan, can we go to the next slide? Yes, so as I said, this workshop series is being jointly run by Project Edu Access and Oxford Pakistan program. So Project Edu Access basically is an organization that believes that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege that most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied through cost, information, and dispositional barriers. And it aims to improve inclusivity in some of these spaces by removing the barriers for marginalized communities in the global South. Next slide. So Oxford Pakistan Program, OPP, is an initiative that aims to create opportunities for Pakistani scholars and aims to support Pakistan-related activities, primarily at the University of Oxford. They support Pakistani scholars with strong academic merit and a commitment to contribute to Pakistan development through impactful research and public engagement in their academic endeavors, aiming to therefore increase representation of Pakistani and British Pakistani students at the University of Oxford. This workshop series sort of is a joint effort to create more awareness and remove sort of informational barriers on making applications for higher education abroad more generally, and not just to University of Oxford. Next slide, Hassan. Thank you. So we have with us two panelists, Hassan and Aleena. Hassan's doing Masters in Community Climate Adaptation from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and Aleena, who's doing an MSc in Social Anthropology at University of Oxford. And we have with us Amna, who has just completed her MPP from University of Oxford. And so before we hand it over to Hassan, I think Amna is going to just give an overview of applications abroad, and then Hassan will take over. But thank you to all three of you, Hassan, Aleena, and Amna, for joining us.
Thank you, Ms. Hi, everyone. My name is Amna. I'm a civil servant from Pakistan, and I was an Oxford Pakistan scholar last year. I completed my master's in public policy from the Blavatnik School of Government at University of Oxford. And this is my second session with Edu Access. I conducted a few last year as well. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview in regards to most importantly, your confidence in terms of applying, which I'll be sharing some of my own experiences, and I'll let you know how I never thought that I'd make it to Oxford, and I did. And one of the main reasons for that was applying. So my conversation would center on how you need to overcome the underconfidence that you probably currently hold in terms of applications, and think big. So last when I started looking at, I'm a mid-career professional, so when I started looking at grad schools, um, having gone to public schools all my life in Pakistan and never having access to international education in any way, I never thought I could make it to Oxford or another Ivy League in the US. But when I started looking at grad schools, of course, one of the few options that I had were those schools in terms of public policy because they were the top ranked. I reached out to a few people, and that's why I believe so much in Edu Access is because they make it inclusive and they do not gatekeep. So a lot of people start gatekeeping when you reach out to them. I know that's a sad reality, but that happened to me as well. Um, so I told them that, oh, I don't have an excellent GPA, as you're generally told that you need to have a 3.9 or at least a 4, a perfect score on your GRE. So do you think I stand a chance? So I reached out to a few people who were either students at Oxford at that time or had graduated. And all of them told me that, oh no, you don't have, your GPA is so low that you should not even think about applying to Oxford because they just look at your grades. So that year I did not apply. And the next year, when somebody else I met, and he told me that no, you have a strong profile, you should definitely apply. I applied, I got in, and I got full scholarship. So my first, suggestion to all of you would be, I'm sure there's going to be a question around GPAs and whether what is the right GPA to apply to Oxford, whether you can apply with a low GPA or not. You can apply with anything. It completely depends on the sort of application that you put in, the package that you put in, and the way you showcase the work that you have done so far. My suggestion in terms of application would be there are two things that I really believe in terms of applications, because when I applied to three schools. Two were Ivy Leagues in the US and one was Oxford, and I got waitlisted at one, I got into another Ivy League, and I got into Oxford. And it was the same application, mostly the same application that I used for all three colleges. So there are two pieces of advice that I'd want to give you. One of them is that always remember that when you're applying to grad school, they'd ask you either for a policy memo or some sort of writing piece, a personal statement, or a statement of purpose. So the submissions would include two or three documents. It won't be just one personal statement, and that's about it. Generally, when I'm reviewing essays and when I'm looking at personal statements and the policy memos that they submit, I see that they don't follow they don't follow one theme. So if your profile is all about the work that you have done either on gender or something in healthcare, your other aspects of your application should also reflect that. So make sure that the theme of the application package needs to be same. So you can't be just talking about technology in the proposal and in your personal statement discussing something very different. So focus on the theme. The second thing that I want to talk about is the structure of the essays. I'm sure Hassan and Aleena are going to divulge the details into how to do that structure. But generally, there needs to be a progression in your essay and it needs to be structured. So a third person who does not know you and has not seen you needs to be made aware of your journey in a chronicle way, but in a very emotional way, where you can touch upon things, how they have influenced or shaped you as a person, and finally make you stand out. So what I did in terms of, and this is the advice that I got from a very senior professor at Princeton when I was applying to that school, in regards to how to make my application stand out, because you need to remember there are thousands and thousands of applications. So he told me that when they're reviewing the applications, the first paragraph is the most important thing of the personal essay. So make sure that everything unique about you reflects in that first paragraph, right? I'm a police officer in Pakistan. As you know, it's a global South country. We barely have female police officers. And he told me to, when I told him that women make less than 2% of the police force in Pakistan, he told me to write that in the first sentence. He's like, that's how you're going to grab attention. So, what I'm trying to tell you is that the first opening paragraph needs to be compelling. It needs to set you apart. And one way of doing that is using numbers to make the person who's reading it visualize you how unique you are. So when I say in a country of 240 million, women make less than 2% of the police force, automatically I'm somebody that they would be interested in, right? And that's exactly, there must be something in your profile which would make you stand out amongst the other candidates. So make sure that the opening paragraph is well structured. It has the required facts or figures, and the first few lines are compelling enough to grab attention so that they read through the rest of the essay. I'm not going to take more time. I'm just going to hand over to Hassan because he has a long presentation to go over, and I'll stay here if you have any questions for later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amna. Thank you so much, Misbah, for the wonderful introduction and start. If I will take the question at the end, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Mohammed Hassan Dajana. I'm currently doing my Fulbright program in community climate adaptation here in the state of Massachusetts. I'll just get into the content of the presentation, and then the most important part would be the question and answers. First thing, I would like to acknowledge all the 52 people who are in this call. You've taken the first step to get access to these opportunities, and we only hope that you build it further from here. That's why we've taken the time to have this session for you. So we begin with the nomenclature, like what does these graduate and postgraduate, what do these terms mean? So they're interchangeable. They are either taught courses in which you learn about different courses, or are they research courses in which you either research, right? So you have to look into the specific program. So if you're doing an MPhil at Cambridge, that might be a courses taught. It may sound like a research program, but it could be like you're studying courses. A DPhil at Oxford is equivalent to a PhD, and some bachelor's degrees are actually masters, like the Oxford Bachelor of Civil Law. So they may differ from their other equivalents in Pakistan. So you may have to do a little bit of research. Whenever you're planning to what you want to do and study, first of all, have your understanding of what you want to study, and then have a look at the title of the program that the different universities offer. Titles could be a bit misleading, but if you look at the content and what they're being taught, then see if what you want to learn is aligning with what is being taught. So that is one key thing you need to, whenever you're looking for a program, you need to look at. The other thing is, whenever you're looking for a course description, for example, if you have a background, my background is in engineering. So if you're looking at a program that is solely engineering perspective, look at the course degree and description. It may be that the title may be different than what the courses are into offer, and a lot of these universities in their programs have both the course descriptions as well as the course catalog. So look at the attention to detail with regards to the specific program that you're applying for, their structure, duration, research components, and potential career outcomes. Where does this come into play? When, as Ms. Amna was pointing out, when you write your essays, you're building that things that stands you apart. If she's a police officer and there's a very limited amount of police officers in that space and she's doing a public policy, that voice needs to be heard. If you're someone that's working in aerospace engineering and you are someone with like a you mentioned that there is a need for civilian utilization of that space, and this is where the gap is, and you see within that academic structure how that gap is covered. If you put it in your essay and that links up with you have studied or what you aim to study, it shows the person reviewing, either me or someone else, that you've done your research, that you've done your homework, and you're filling in your gaps. The easier you make for the other person to select you, the better chances you get of getting selected for these opportunities, right? So there might be different approaches to different programs. As an example here of being an Oxford MPP might be different from a Chicago MPP. One is a qualitative driven policy analysis, what already has done approach, and a Chicago looks more on a quantitative Chicago economics based approach. So, and have a, if you know your needs, if you know what you're aiming for, if you know what you're looking for, first ascertain that yourself. And how I did that, I'll tell you an example of when I was looking for program, what did I do? What did I want to study and listen? My background was in civil engineering. I worked for 5 years in different nonprofits in the climate space in Pakistan. I wanted to bridge that gap between engineering and climate science. That led me to the current program that I'm in which I take these quantitative data, statistical, and engineering courses. I link them up with climate sciences, theoretical qualitative courses, and the other component of the research is the work that I do in the city that I live in developing their climate adaptation plan. So I had three interests: keeping my quant engineering degree, building on the climate qualitative skills, and then bridging them both in like work which I'm doing with the city. So that was my interest. I had my interest which I linked with the current program that I'm doing, which I wrote down in my essay, right? So ensure that this alignment exists in your professional and academic goals. When I was writing my essay for Fulbright or applicable for other scholarships as well, I wrote down the challenge. I wrote down the work that I did, and I wrote down like the specific challenges in it. And I closed my essay with, I've done this work. I feel like I've cracked the surface. I know there's bigger systemic challenges that still exist. I aim to do something about it by learning these skills, which I think this program will provide me. Right. This is how I went about doing my decision. Right. The next goal is, how do you choose your course? How would you understand what you want to study? First of all, identify your academic interest. It could be your background, it could be your academic background of what you've studied, and your long-term career goals. For example, some may have a clearer trajectory path. If you've studied law, you would pursue law. But if you have a background in physics, maybe you want to go into quantum information systems and whatnot. So identify your academic interests, where you currently at, where you aim to go. This is very crucial. A lot of us are in a mind space, maybe like, I want to get a scholarship, I want to head abroad for like better opportunities. But first give some time to yourself. And how did I do that? Without any distractions, just list down everything that interests you, that you find valuable, that may be helpful for the larger cause, whatever you find a career in, something that makes you money, something that is fulfilling. The Japanese concept of ikigai, right? That helped me narrow down everything that I wanted to do to come to the conclusion that I did. Do a lot of research with regards to different courses and programs. First have an academic interest of what you want, then do a research on like what are the universities that offer these programs and how do they align with what you do. And what I used to do was look at LinkedIn of people who've done the program to see where they end up going after they study the program, the curriculum, course structure, specializations, all of it. What are the specificities of those programs that would be of interest to you? Are there any specific research being conducted at that university or faculty? And what are the practical components of that work that align with your, so that you're building up your career as you go along? And like what are the alumni up to? Like do more of these fellowships as you go along. So when you're selecting, okay, I know what I want, I know what I want, career and academic guys, I know the type of course that I'm looking for. What other factors do you need to look at? So the universities ranking provide a good sense of you, but that should not be your sole criteria, right? For example, some universities might be good at their MPP, some might be good at their policy programs, some might be good at their engineering, some might be good at their liberal arts and sciences. So you really need to not look at the university's whole as their whole ranking, but look at that specific department and the research that they are doing. If that aligns with you and if they're well ranked, good. And then most importantly, the faculty, what they are teaching, what areas of more that they are researching on. For example, if my idea of thought would be, if my area of focus was climate migration, I might have looked at a different university because the faculty there is more in tuned and more doing more research in that, right? So specifically identify your interest academically, then identify the areas that you, what kind of programs, and then what specific departments are doing what kind of specific research. All of it is going, the more effort you put in, when you submit that essay, all of this effort will bear fruit. Because when you mention specific areas and themes that you want to study in, and then you refer in your essay that this is something that the current this faculty is already doing, it's gonna be really helpful. Look at the university connections, programs. Do they have any co-ops, internships, connections with, and like what are the alumni doing to make a better adjustment, right? So your own academic profile and requirements, what you've done, like where do you want to study, how much does it cost, what are the scholarships available, and like what is the diversity and inclusive of that body. So consider all of these different factors, then make an informed decision of what you want to study, where you want to study, and within which research department you want to study and build your career forward. Okay. Once you've analyzed all of it, there's like three different factors that you need to consider. Okay, I know what I want to do. I know the area of specialization. I know a specific area. Now how do I need to go about doing it? There are three ways to do it. Like a dream university, like highly competitive dream universities, like as Ms. Amna pointed out, like the Oxford, the Cambridge, the Harvards, the Ivy League, Stanford, Yale, all of it. Like a high dream university that your profile might meet their requirement, but is not, admission is not guaranteed. Like dream big, don't undersell yourself. Then target universities somewhere that are good universities that your profile matches with, and like safe universities that you would have a high likelihood of getting into. So whenever you're looking at it, have a realistic approach towards these, aim really high. But in when there's a challenge, know that there other access and opportunities also exist. So dream, target safe. Dream would be the most competent, most competitive programs that are in your area of studies. Target universities that are good, realistic options based on your profile. Safe universities, if the dream and target are like something that you're struggling with, you always have a backup. So the deadlines for these different programs change depending upon different countries and areas. So the UK primarily for the next fall. So these are all for the next fall. Start somewhere between September to January, and that's when you're submitting your applications to the review committee for specific universities, right? So they look at those applications and then they get back to you. The process continues, and like you generally start in fall with like if there's interview components, other documentary components, For the US, right now is the time in which people are submitting their applications for the graduate program. Some applications are due in November, some in December, some in later in January, but usually August to December is your best bet. And for Europeans, they start later, from October to May. So there are like two specific kinds of deadlines when you're looking for specific universities. One is like a course and one is like a funding. The best thing you could do for your graduate application is to start as early as possible. The earlier that you start, the best it would be for you, because they usually the funding deadline comes prior, and then the course does have like a, maybe you could apply till January 15th, something like that. But in order to be considered for funding something, they would give you like a deadline, like December, apply by December 1st to be considered for funding. So keep that in mind. And when you are applying for funding, there's like different kinds of funding that we will get into. Some of them are like university internal scholarships, some of them are external providers of scholarship. If it's within the external, they will tell you either that funding document is part of that application that you're doing, or you need to submit a separate application. And for external programs, they are, you have to look at those external specific programs, what are their deadlines and when do those dates come into play. Here, applying early can significantly improve your chances of admissions and funding opportunities, because they do this process on a rolling admission basis, meaning that as soon as the application starts rolling in after the first deadline, they start reviewing them. So the earlier that you apply, the higher will be your chances of admissions and potential funding. So keep those deadlines in mind. What I would recommend is, once you have that listed down, your academic interest, what you want to study, where you want to study, have like a little Excel sheet for you. Like, these are the deadlines, these are the priority deadlines, these are the documents that are required for me for this program, and these are the dates I need to get them to you. Usually we'll come to the application as well, like the documents required. Okay. When you are applying for these graduate programs, like the basic documents requirement would be these, but they vary depending upon the program that you talk. As Ms. Amna pointed out, her program required a policy memo. My program required a statement of purpose and a study objective. So the basic document that you would need is a CV or resume. Cater to them. There are, the US format is a little different than the European, and the British is a little different from the European. So whenever you are applying for these specific countries, have a look at the accepted format of resume or CV which goes into that specific country, and align, cater to that. There's a statement of purpose or personal statement that lists down your story, your, if you are at this stage of applying to this program, what's the journey that you've taken to achieve, to come here. My personal statement relied along. I was born and raised in northwestern Pakistan along the river Indus, and I've seen the impacts of climate change firsthand. I had a brain deluge happen while I was driving a motorcycle. Very dangerous situation. I just narrated all of that in a form of my whole story alongside the work that I did to understand it more, identifying the gaps in which I wanted to work on, but I wasn't skilled in, which led me to get the opportunity that I'm in. For writing sample, they ask you for like, submit a document of this much length so that we can assess your writing capabilities. I wrote up a project proposal which I submitted as a writing sample. Letters of recommendations, usually if it depends, if you're just outside, if you're just from your, after your undergrad, academics would make sense. But if you're in a couple of years in your in your professional career, from your one minimum one from your academic advisors and the rest from your work experience would suffice. But it depends. Have a look at when these specific opportunities open up, they tell you like, these are the types of information that we seek from these letters of recommendation, and these are the format. But at least have one academic referee, and if you have good substantial work experience, mention your works. Your transcripts and degree certificates, some of them might require HEC verification, some may not, depends upon programs. Your English language proficiency tests, IELTS and TOEFL, will come to it in this presentation. And your standard GRE standard tests, so the GRE for graduate and GMAT for your business. So there's two words, the statement of purpose and personal statement. SOP, usually the statement of purpose focuses on your academic and professional goals and research interests, right? And the statement of purpose could be like your like study objective as well. Like what are academically where you come from, what you've studied, what you worked on, what your interests on, and what you aim to do moving forward. While a personal statement is more of you as a holistic individual. If this is the career path that you chose for yourself, what aspirations, motivations led you to choose that area of work? Personally, my personal statement revolved around being brought up in like alongside the river Indus, doing a background in civil engineering, in which I did a lot of fluid mechanics, water engineering, resources coursework. Got a chance to come to the US through the UGRED program, understand the differences in climate action between the US and Pakistan, seeing the impact that climate change was happening on Pakistan, working on it on the grassroots level through a multitude of different initiatives, and then seeing gaps within all of these areas and feeling like there's a need to do more work, and this is the kind of work that needed to be done. And on the statement of purpose academic side, listing down all the work experiences, projects, each and specific goals and objectives, and if given the chance to study further, this is how I aim to fulfill that gaps. And within these applications, some programs would ask, what I would ask you these leadership questions as well, like what matters most to you, or like what kind of leadership do you aim to extol, or like what, how we are looking for someone who is very good socially and working alongside a group of people, how do you aim to do that? Read these questions and answer them in a manner that's very specific, that catches their attention, that gets your point across. And if there's something that really matters to you, like show them. Don't, they just want to holistically observe you as an individual and person. When you hear that person, what's the first thought that comes into your mind? Write all of that and then edit it down, so that you're not following any concept or idea or any format, you're just showing what's coming up to you. So you've done all of this work, you've looked at all of the requirements, you know what you want to study, you've set in your applications. How would you know? Okay, you know what you study, you know where you aim to study, you know the documents and needed, and you submitted your application. What happens next? Like what would you know what happens? Like there's two types of offers that you would get if you are selected to a program from their graduate admissions office. It's either a conditional or an unconditional offer. A conditional offer is, okay, we are conditionally giving you an offer for admission, but if you are currently doing your undergrad, we need this specific GPA for you. But if you're already given them your completed transcript and if they've given you an offer, this may not arise. Or give us these English test requirement. For example, we require these standardized tests. Usually the English language test you don't submit at the time of application. If you're selected, then they'll ask you, we need this minimum score and you have to submit this score by this date. And if there's any document that's missing, submit that document. And an unconditional offer is, you've already submitted everything. We don't need any academic conditions. We don't need to submit you anything. We are offering you a place in this program. You have till this date to accept or reject this offer. In the unconditional offer, that acceptance might require you to submit like a deposit fee, like submit this amount of fee to accept this unconditional offer. So this is how the process would look like. There's another concept called application fees. Some programs require you to submit an application fees, some do not. So the programs such as like the School of Source, Birmingham, Glasgow, they don't require an application fees. Some do. UCL costs 75 euros, others, like, it depends, from 50 to 100 pounds. And some universities can also offer waivers. Waiver meaning that you don't have to pay an application fee, but it depends upon universities to university. Check the university waiver policies on their website, what policy and procedure that they've outlined. If they don't have a waiver policy, write to the admissions office requesting a waiver, right? And this next step tells you how to do that, right? I'll just get to the waiver part. I'll just talk about the English proficiency test requirement here. So there's like a bunch of different English proficiency tests that you can give, like the TOEFL, like the TETO test of English as a foreign language, primarily used in North America, the IELTS English language, International English Language Test System in the UK and the broader Commonwealth, the Cambridge English qualification, the PTE, primarily in Australia, and the Duolingo English test, increasingly accepted because you could do it from your phone. So these are a whole range of tests, but the universities ask you which are the acceptable tests to give, and what are the minimum scores and how can you report them. they are, if you have given the conditional offer, that comes later. You don't have to give them usually when you're applying for programs. Okay, but there's like a some universities have a waiver possibility for English language requirements as well. See what that policy exists, and like see if you've done your academic background in like an institution that teaches in English, what are the possibilities exist. There's a possibility, but usually an English test is required. The test that you give are like valid for 2 years. Check the requirements of each program, and then see what do you need to do, and if there's like waivers or alternatives that you can provide. Okay, so this is the, when you are looking for application waivers for specific universities, if you're applying for a university and the university makes you pay a fees just to apply, then the word waiver is you add in a code within that application, so you don't have to pay the fees. How do you go about doing that? First of all, research the university's policy. So XYZ university, for example, University College London, waiver fees, uh, application fee waiver policy. You write that on Google, on Perplexity, on any another search engine that you use, you'll get that policy. They have, some of them have very clear guidelines. If they are not unclear or you're unsure, always reach out to the admissions office and reach out to them as early as possible, not the day before the deadline, but well in advance, that I'm interested in applying, but I'm interested, is there a fee waiver policy? And be honest and specific about your circumstances, that just don't say that I want a fee waiver. State out the reason. I'm interested in studying MA special education and leadership at the University College London. Is there a possibility for me to have a fee waiver because of these specific reasons and circumstances, right? And like provide evidence to support your request when possible and when needed. Like build a case for yourself, your interest in your program. Be very polite and professional in your communication. If you don't hear back within a week, just drop a little follow up like, hi, I reached out a week ago regarding the fee waiver policy at XYZ University. I just wanted to follow up and see if there's any update that you could share with me. If you're granted a waiver, say very thank you and keep a record of all of this information. If the waiver policy and they if they say like it's not available, see if you want to, how you can, if you want to take the waiver, and if you want to take the specific test, what are the other alternatives. So plan your life accordingly, taking all of these decisions into consideration. Okay, some standardized tests. So you have this application package in which there your CV, your resume, your all of your recommendation letters, your essays, your English language, and another concept is a standardized test for different graduate applications. Some of those standardized tests include the GRE, the Graduate Record Examination. They're used for various graduate programs, the GMAT for different business schools, LSAT for different law schools, and MCAT for the different medical schools. The GRE used to be 4.5 hours long. It's cut in half to about 2 hours and 20 minutes. They assess your different skills and knowledge. I'm experienced at GRE because that's what you need for the full ride program, in which there's like a writing component, a quantitative analysis, and a verbal analysis portions. It's like the better you practice, the better you are good at it. But over the recent past, there was a change in removing that requirement for standardized tests. Look at your specific program, see if they require specific standardized tests. If they require those standardized tests, then you would need to give those. There's usually no waiver for standardized tests. If they make it optional, it's up to you, but check the requirements of each program. If, as Ms. Amna was pointing out regarding funding and financing, if you have a if the GPA is something that you would have earned that could have been higher, some ways to overcome that GPA lag, because there's a lot of competition for programs like these when there's funding involved and you're competing with a lot of people with really good GPAs. How do you show to the committee, the evolution committee, that you're really good at what you do? And they are seeing a number, a GPA that's like, okay, it's good, but there's like other but better opportunities. How would you know that you're better? They look at your essays. Okay, what motivates him, what brings him forward, what makes him them. They look at your resume and cover, they look at your resume. Okay, this is the professional path that they've taken. And the most importantly, if a standardized test is given and you score really high on it, it means that you're comparatively really competent at what you do. So it really goes in your favor. So when you're applying for these funding opportunities and different assets, it goes in your favor. So a point to consider. So we talk about funding and financing, a lot of these programs are really expensive, both in the US as well as in the UK. Graduate programs are expensive. So you need scholarships or funding opportunities to cover your academic courses. So when you're applying for these universities, there's two things you need to consider. There's like an internal scholarship or like external scholarships. If you, for example, if you apply for Oxford, they consider you based on your course application alone, whether any internal scholarship is applicable for you, and they will let you know if you are selected on the conditional letter if you have been given any scholarship. If there's some other scholarship such as the Gates Cambridge and the Weidenfeld Hoffman Trust scholarship, they will ask you additional documents alongside of your course application. So your application would go to Oxford for the specific program, and then these external funders would need more information. So they would have their own specific, these are the areas that we're funding, this is our aim, this is where we are funding our academic research, and these are the prompts that you need to answer. A lot of them would require a lot of questions from you. So maybe regarding your leadership, your social experience, your what you aim to do with this academic career moving forward, like what like how would this help you achieve the goals that you set. So these are different prompts for different scholarships. What sets apart, as Ms. Amna was pointed out, like what sets apart your application, what I've seen in my experience, I've been reviewing different essays and applications since 2018. There's a lot of people are really good academically. There's another component called your social activities, like the extracurricular, co-curricular, academic, non-profit, NGO, volunteer work. You're good at what you do, you have a good GPA, you're doing work that you're doing really good job at. What else are you doing to give back to the community, to your services? Any leadership? Have you done any leadership role in your undergrad? And afterwards, have you continued building on that? So they look at a holistic individual that's good at what they do, they're knowledgeable, they're smart, and they're giving back to their community in different ways. So that could be like arranging blood drives, or like like for me, for example, let sharing all of this information with you is one way of me to give back. So they need this holistic approach, and a lot of these questions would ask you something like, what does social leadership mean to you, and how do you engage different community members? Like they want a holistic person that thinks bigger than themselves. For them, life is not just about me making a lot of money and being in a country abroad. Is like, what does this mean for the larger community that I come from, and how would I aim to give back? If you have that larger than life vision of yourself, then and you've done work that backs that up, in these essays it would reflect. You cannot fake that up. It reflects in the words and the way that you put forward. So you build those little life experiences. It would come in handy when you write essays for programs like this. And if you're looking for external scholarships, for example the Rhodes scholarships, there would be a separate program for it, separate portal for it, in which they depend upon, they list down like how would you aim to go about it. So they would have their own separate process from the university admission, such as Commonwealth and Chevening. So Chevening, you apply for the scholarship. If you get the scholarship, you separately apply for the university. If you get in, then you let Chevening know that I've gotten into this university, and they will fund you if that program comes under and their funding for it. And some scholarships have barrier to entry as well. For Rhodes, you need like an 3.7 GPA to enter, something similar. So something others to keep in mind. So this is where the content of the slides comes to a close. Thank you so much for listening so attentively. So I'll give it back to Amna and Misbah to, and if
Yeah.
any fellows have any questions.
Before we take the questions, just quickly wanted to add to what Hassan has just said. Hassan, thank you so much. That was a holistic overview of everything. Thank you for your time. I just want to say that, there's another important thing that we need to keep in mind when we are looking at, applications, and that is reading the web page of the application, the program that you're applying to. So one of the big mistakes that we make is that we do not read exactly what is written on the program page, see what courses are they offering within that program, what direction, as Hassan said, that some of the policy programs would be quant intensive, the others won't be. So your personal statements would have a portion where you would be mentioning those things, right? Like you need to align yourself with the program. So it's always a good idea to just read properly, not just the question, which Hassan pointed out. It's extremely important, in fact, imperative that you read the question and answer it if there is a prompt for the personal statement. Apart from that, you also should look at the web page of the program and see what exactly are they doing in the course. And it is always a good idea to mention that in a para or so in your personal statement. Thank you. That would be all from me. If you have any questions, I think it's time that we take them.
You can either raise your hand through the reactions bar, or you either write a question in the chat and we'll get to it. Isaira, go ahead.
Thank you very much for such an informative session. My question is from Amna regarding the Oxford University essay, especially the reflective essay. I want to know about exactly the structure of the reflective essay because it specifically gives two kinds of scenarios. That in one, we have the option either to analyze an existing policy or to highlight some area where there was no policy at all. Being an Oxford alumni, what is her take on it? That should we prefer analyzing an existing public policy, or it is better to go with some suggestive kind of a policy essay?
All right. Thank you so much for your question. Assalamu alaikum. I would just want to say that this one thing that I'm going to be probably repeating myself in stating, it is that your application needs to have one theme. The whole package needs to, as Hassan said, that if he was working on climate change and technology, what is statement of purpose and personal statement both somehow talked about that. And with the reflective essay, because I have you need a reflective essay for a policy program at Princeton as well, and one at the Oxford Blavatnik School of Government. And in both those essay, what I found was very good, because I got both of them reviewed by a professor at Princeton, was the fact that mine were very emotional, right? But then again, they were connected to my main essay. So for example, if my application was around how I have over time uh, countered gender-based violence through my civil service, my reflective essay was about a policy issue, as you pointed out, that I witnessed within the department through an incident that shaped the way I saw gender-based violence and policy, and how the criminal justice system was failing women. It was a mix of both things, but I would again state that even for the Princeton essay, the reflective essay for Princeton's application, both those essays had one thing in common: it was emotional. So the first essay that I wrote for Princeton, the reflective essay, was around how my mother, a very competent woman, but because of the structural issues that we have in the society, could not complete her education and was married off, and how that shaped me to be who I am today. Then again, had a gendered perspective to it. And the one that I wrote for Oxford was around how an incident, it was a very infamous case, Noor Muqaddam's murder in Pakistan. I was the chief investigating officer for that, and how during that particular case, I started viewing the gaps in the policy in terms of access to justice for women in Pakistan. But then again, both of those reflective essay had a very emotional element to it. Again, they were connected to a policy. Again, they were talking about gender, which was the main theme of everything that I had put together. But they had this emotional component to it. I hope this answers your question.
We had another hand raised. Let me
We
just
have
see.
Soha Zillehoma. So Soha, can we take your question first, and then we'll go to Zillehoma?
Assalamu alaikum, am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be in the same place as you, because as a woman, you're a role model. So my question is that how do I format my personal statement? For example, how do I include this many things with a word limit? So because I don't have work experience, I would share more about my personal journey. So how would I format it? Thank you.
All right. So one of the things, I think this was Soha. Soha, thank you so much for your kind words. One of the things that I should mention to you is that do not include anything that's extra. You know, you have to be, there is always a word limit. So certain applications would require you to write an essay of maximum 1,500 words, but generally the average is 1,000 words. So what you need to do is that you need to first, what I did was basically, as I said, we need to have a strong opening paragraph that needs to include either your story or some numbers to just give a perspective on which area you're coming to, so that the person reading it can visualize. But apart from that, the way I did it for my essay was that I jotted down in pointers, like we do for presentations, the sort of work that I have done or the sort of journey that I've had. And then, you know, like look at those, just put it down in form of bullets on a Word document, and then look at the progression to see what needs to come first and what needs to go after that. And then make paragraphs, short paragraphs out of those. I would suggest that one of the things that you can do is that you need to, when you focus on one theme, as I said, that if you want to talk about education and girls in Pakistan or in the global South, what you need to do is you need to remove everything else which does not relate to that in your journey. So the best way, again, I'd say is that just jot down everything that your journey has led to so far, and then look at it the way it's the hierarchy of it, to put on the top what has come first and what has come second, and then make short paragraphs out of it and remove everything which does not correlate to your main theme. That's it. That's how you need to do it. Can we take Zille Huma's question now?
Go for it, Zilhama.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for providing us with this opportunity to ask questions. So I was asking some friends. I did my bachelor's from University of London in politics and IR, and I had this upper second class honors. So my friend told me, "Okay, you cannot get into Oxford with a 2-1. You have to work really hard and do masters, and uske baad you can think about it." So I had the same situation. I did not apply to Oxford, but I applied to LSE, and I got into DM, but unfortunately I didn't get Commonwealth scholarship. First phase I was shortlisted, but then on I wasn't finally shortlisted. So I wanted to ask this question here. Should I change my SOP for that LSE program to be shortlisted for Commonwealth again next year? And for Oxford, like since I just graduated last year, I don't have that of an experience. So there are myths like you need experience before going to Oxford, and you need like a lot of evidence in your application. Although I've done like work at different places, I did work with the University of London and different organizations. So this is like this has been really pushing me back from applying to Oxford. That will I be able to get it or not?
Can I just quickly answer this, Hassan, if you allow me to? Because I had a terrible GPA, and that's
Go
exactly
for it.
why I
Go for it,
started my
Amna.
conversation, because I knew there are going to be questions around GPA in Oxford. And we don't like to gatekeep, and that's why we're part of Edu Access. Thank you, Samir, for hosting this platform, because this is exactly why I took out time to speak to you all. Because when I was applying to schools, and I told you it's an emotional thing, it was so taxing. And I reached out to people, and they're like, "Oh, you know, you have such a terrible GPA. How are you going to make it to Oxford?" I did not apply that year. So, Zilemo, the first thing is that you need to understand that GPA you to 1 is great enough to apply to. I did not have a 2-1. I had something's really bad, but I'm just saying that what you need to understand is that you need to apply. 2-1 is great GPA in terms of, I think it's a 3.3 or 3.4, but that's more than enough. The second thing that you need to understand is that when we talk about work, and when you say that, oh, I've done these little small things and I haven't done like anything big, blah blah, it doesn't matter. It only matters how you write it down on a piece of paper, so the person reading it knows that you have a clear path, you make sense in what you're trying to say, and you have a strong will to just be there at that particular university. And I have seen, we have had so many graduates with us in the master's program who had just come out of their undergrad, right? And you need to again also there's also this myth around the fact that whatever little work you have done, it's so little that it's menial and it doesn't need to be reflected on your CV or your essay. This is also wrong. You need to highlight and pinpoint everything that you have done over time during your undergrad or after it, and just link it to the sort of degree program that you're trying to do after that. I would suggest that it's a bit of a tweaking in terms of wording, when you write it down in the personal statement. And the second thing that I want to highlight is nothing is small. So maybe you might have just led something in terms of starting a magazine for your school that shows your leadership skills, right? So do not shy away from applying to these universities. Please apply. I'm a living example of that. I did not put it in the application the next year. When I did, I got in, not just got in, I got a full scholarship with the same GPA. So my only suggestion to you right now is that please do not put yourself down. Please apply. Please make sure that you put everything that you have done so far in your personal statement and your CV, and you'd be surprised. And trust me, if the Commonwealth did not work out, it's for a good reason, because you were meant for something better. That happened to me the first year I applied to King's University. Not that I'm saying it's a bad university, but I applied to King's. I wanted to go to King's. It was my dream university, and I got in their public policy program and applied for the evening scholarship. I got through the interview. I got to till the interviews, and after interviews, they did not accept me as a candidate for evening. I was so heartbroken. But the next year, I was in Oxford. So you never know, right? So please apply.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for motivating me. Honestly, like when you said that it's not about GPA, I really felt like a rush of emotion that I should go to Oxford, because I've been dreaming to go to Oxford for like 10 years. And one more question about academic essays that we submit alongside our SOP. So, should I be writing those essays about my own self, or should they be relevant to the masters I am applying, or about my bachelor's or something else? Because one thing that I feel like is missing from my application is that I don't have enough publications or essay published or something like that. I don't have that in my application, and this was the only element I felt like in my Commonwealth application, which is why I wasn't selected.
ये बड़ी टेक्निकल पढ़ाई वाली बात कर दी है, so I'm gonna ask Hassan to answer this one.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I was just responding to a question in the chat. Can you repeat that, Zulema? I'm so sorry.
So my question is कि जो Oxford की application में I have to submit extra pieces of writing, should they be focused on my goals in my master's or my bachelor's or something like related to my life? Or what specifically should I be focusing on those pieces of writing, because I haven't written a lot in my life?
When I was asked for a writing sample, the writing sample that I've submitted was my undergraduate degree thesis. It was on highway pavement and design. That was one of the writing sample that I gave, and the second writing sample that I gave was a project that I did with the Climate Reality Project and the World Economic Forum on an urban sustainability climate adaptation plan for the city of Rawalpindi. My writing sample were these two. One reason of putting that academic one was I put in a year of effort in with all of my engineering background, and the second one was it was something that me and our team built over 3 months and got a lot of substantial support in achieving. So when you're giving that writing sample, you should give your best, and you have to ascertain what is your best. Is it your academic submission? Is it a research article? If you don't have a research publication, that's all right. If for your undergraduate you've written any essay for any, if you've written any op-ed, if undergraduate you've written any kind of an assignment, a paper, an essay, and if that's what your best, then I would recommend going with the best you have to offer.
So it can be like not very relevant to the program I'm applying, because I'm thinking to apply for social protection policy. And if I recall, the best essay I've written in my bachelor's is that the one on colonialism. So, ma'am Amna, like if I connect that essay with my application, would that work?
देखो Zulema, sorry, I'm switching between languages, but I think everybody here can speak either Hindi or Urdu. But the one thing that you need to understand is that the fact that whatever work you have done, when I talk about linking it to what you have done, it's not that you were born to do a certain thing and you just keep like, you know, your work, your life goes in a trajectory which is mathematical in nature and 1 + 1 is equal to 2. No, that does not happen. So sometimes your writing piece can just show the good writing skills that you have, right? You have strong writing skills, and that's exactly what your writing piece is showing. It doesn't need to specifically reflect that you have done a certain type of work. It can show other skills that you hold. So keep that in mind while you're drafting your application or submitting your work, because they are, as Hassan said, they're not just looking for somebody who's very academically career has been decided right out of grad school. No, it doesn't work like that. So what you need to understand is they're looking for a lot of different skills. They're looking for social skills. They're looking for interpersonal skills. They're looking for good writing skills. So whatever work you have done might just be showing off those skills of yours. So keep that in mind. We have to take questions from Aisha and Maria. So if Aisha, you can go, Mariam,
Maria.
Mariam first, and then Aisha, and then Maria. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for arranging this session. So I have two questions. I'm a recent law graduate, and while I was submitting my applications, I came across this question in a number of my applications, which is what is your, let's say, future goal or your future plan, which is like 5 year or 10 year plan. I was like confused on how to go about answering that question, because if I like start thinking about what I want to do, let's say in 5 years, so it comes down to barely 4 or 5 lines, and it asks for like 250 words or minimum of that. So how can I think in a way or write in a way that I can project my future goals or future plans, especially considering the fact that I'm not very certain about my own future as of yet. So that's like a very confusing question for me. Like, how should I go about answering that, and what the applicants who are accepting those applicants are looking to assess in that particular question. And second question, it just slipped through my mind. You can answer that, and I'll try to remember
You
what that.
just type that one in chat. Hassan, do you want to take this question? Because mine was a very different story with the civil service. I'd rather have you answer this.
Mariam, if I was in your shoes, what I would do is I would list down everything that I'm doing. For example, if you're a law graduate and you studied law for, I'm assuming, 5 years, there's different ways and avenues within law. There's like constitutional law, there's corporate law, there's personal law, there's family law, there's inheritance law. There's like different ways of law. And I'm pretty sure you would have some interest in some area and themes of knowledge. If I was in your shoes and I get that question, I'll look at I'll self-reflect. I'll self-reflect, okay, I've studied all of these. And if you've clerked at any court, and if you worked in any law space, you would have a general sense of, okay, maybe corporate is not the best for me, or maybe corporate is the way to go. And then you scheme at the current stage that I'm in, when you're framing this answer, at the current stage that I'm in, my interests peak between these different types of law practices. My The major interest that I have is within this niche of practice that arose in me because of doing this clerkship at this court, in which I was able to learn this. But this is a future question in which there's a lot of uncertainty involved, and I aim to clear this uncertainty through this graduate program, in which I aim to learn this. My larger goal in life is within this time period to have my own practice or specialize in this specific area of knowledge, but my aim goal is to do this. So you're listing down the thought process that's gotten into your mind, and how you would go to solve about this. Because I totally agree with you, Mariam. It's something that you can't give a definitive answer to. But if you give out that thought process, lay out the different options, tell what you're thinking, share where you're leaning for, the reason for your leaning, how you aim to bridge the gap of where you are, where you ought to be through this program. It's gonna give the application review something to work on, and like this individual is thinking through the process. Amna, would you like to add anything to that? Should we move to the next question?
Hassan, this was fantastic. I think this covers everything. Can we just move on to the next question?
Aisha,
Because
go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry, I just remember my second question. Can I ask?
Mariam, we could come at if we have time at the end because we'll let's see the other questions if you don't mind. Sorry. Yeah,
Oh,
Aisha, go ahead. Thank you, Mariam. You can write them in the chat. Mariam, Aisha, go ahead. Aisha, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Hello?
Yes, Aisha, we can hear you now.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Go for it, Aisha.
Uh, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Aisha. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I'm really grateful that you arranged this session. It was very helpful. I have a really odd question. So I'm basically a British and a Pakistani national, and I don't know which nationality to apply as. So should I use my Pakistani nationality or a British nationality? Because I feel like certain countries might prefer my nationality more than my Pakistani. So what do you think? What is your perspective on this?
Do we have a perspective on this, Hassan?
The kind of problems I would like to have, but like I'm what do you think,
All
Amna?
right.
I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure, Aisha, but what we can suggest, I think like what common sense would say that, you know, like at this point, it depends really upon the course and the sort of profile that you have over time. So, for example, if I have two nationalities, I'm a dual national, and I've worked both in Pakistan and in another country where I'm a resident of. So, I'd really see how in my profile, which one takes precedence. So, for example, if most of my work is in another country, I'd rather put that as the nationality that I'm applying with, because there's a reason for that. As Sameer was just mentioning to the previous question in an answer, that, you know, like you have to give your 5-year plan. So again, go back to the point that yes, it needs to have, your personal statement needs to have a structure, and it needs to come down to the conclusion where you state what you're going to do in the next 5 years. So if you have worked in a certain country for a few years, and that's how the theme of your essay has been so far, it makes more sense to just apply with that nationality. That would raise your chances of getting, you know, admitted, I think. That's what I believe. What do you think, Hassan?
I think I agree. I agree.
Can we
Yes.
take the
I
next?
see. I have another question.
Aisha, if you can drop the other chat question in the chat so that we give opportunities for like everybody to ask, I think would be fair
Okay, I
to
saw.
others. Go for it,
ठीक
Maria.
है.
Yes, Maria Riaz.
Um, Hello, Assalamu alaikum. So thank you so much for this session. Wait a second. So, so I want to ask that I've been struggling to apply as a PhD scholar in a certain specific university for like 5 years, and the struggles are within because I have been writing and discarding my statement, my research proposal. So this was my last chance. Like I was thinking that if I won't get this opportunity with OPP, then I'll just trash this idea. So my question is that although there's no age limit, but now I'm in my 40s. So does this affect the scholarship chances? Because even if you get an admission, if you don't get a scholarship, then does this age is this a factor? Because it's not written somewhere, but I heard that if you are in your 40s bracket, then your chances are quite low.
Maria, thank you for your question. I'm quickly gonna answer this. I'm only here to break myths, and one of the myths is that no, age is just a number, as they say. It does not matter. If you go to the Oxford Pakistan's webpage, you'll see that 2 or 3 of our scholars are about the same age as you, or probably you know, more in numbers. But I want to clarify it and say it again and spell it out for you that no, it does not matter. You still have a long way to go, inshallah. Just please apply and or wo OPP scholars hain, so they got full funding. Again, I'm repeating myself in stating that no, it does not. And OPP की website पे आप उनकी profiles पढ़ सकते हैं, so you'd get what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Fatma, can we take your question?
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yes.
Hey everybody. So I was just applying for a fellowship and I had a question regarding the policy, public policy. So the question was if you could enact one local, state, federal, international policy, what would it be and why? So I just wanted to ask if, like, would it create any sort of difference if I go for a local policy or if I go for an international policy? Because we see that as a global citizen, like, maybe I'm thinking in my head that maybe they are gonna judge me on the basis of, like, if this candidate considers herself a sort of global citizen, or, like, therefore I'm just confused that either I should go for local agricultural policy or should I go for um international climate change policy. Like, if I would not go for international, maybe for local, they would take it as a sort of um like this person is literally confined to a very small area. But if I go for international policy, it may create higher chances of getting selected, because it shows my that this person is taking the responsibility of global problems. So what would you suggest? Like, would it create any sort of difference, or it totally depends upon the expertise I hold? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly answer this, and then I have to leave. Hassan, if you could just take on from here. Is that no, it again, it totally depends on what you have written in your personal statement and what the fellowship is about, right? We cannot just state that whether your chances would increase or decrease. It would completely and totally depend on the aims and objectives of the fellowship that you're applying to. I have personally found that, one of the things, as I was saying, that sets us apart, even though it's a sad thing to say, but us having experienced life in the global south uh, generally adds a lot of perspective to our application. And I have been a big proponent of the fact that you should focus on your own region or country, because that's what your experience has been. Generally, it's not the mid careers or the early graduates who get to decide international policy, until and unless you're working in diplomacy or an international multinational organization. But even then, you're just like, editing and drafting. So not like your decision making is impacting any sort of policy. To make it more sense, I would suggest that if your work in agriculture has been based in the global south, in a particular region, if I were you, I would go down, even not to the country, but to a province or probably a district. As Hassan was just saying, like, how he specifically had a lived experience in a particular area of Pakistan, where, climate change was impacting the livelihoods. So I would just, it's my honest advice to you that always stick true to your roots, because that's what you know the best, and they don't, and that's the sort of expertise that they want on board.
Yeah, just add on to that, Amna. Whenever you have this prompt, look at the exact wording of that prompt. Look at the opportunity that you're applying for, and like the local context is the best. It boils down to not like the scope of the thought you have. It depends upon the content of the thought. Maybe if it's climate policy for Germany, there's a lot of Germans working for it. But if, for example, I want to enact a climate policy for Noshero Feroz, even I would be interested in learning about that. So it boils down to the content that you provide, and they're looking at the thought process. Are you thorough enough within the scope that you've set? Because for Germany, you, for like a larger context, you can rely on a lot of resource and build something that's generic. They're looking for like a thorough, specific way of approach, and your approach's content is what they want to assess, more or less the scope and more or less the scope of it. I hope that answers that question. Samir, if you're on call, there was a question. Thank you so much, Amna.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you could
yes.
answer the PhD question.
Right, I will. So first of all, I mean, just to say that this is a workshop series, and we're going to have sessions on PhD applications as well, and more dedicated sessions on other aspects of university applications, including your CV, SOP, etc. So of course, this was more of an introductory session, and in subsequent sessions, you will have more guidance on preparing those documents. That's just for everybody's benefit. Now, to answer that specific question, which was about approaching your supervisor or potential supervisor while you're applying for PhD applications, and the question is, do you have to approach a potential supervisor, or can you just apply through the normal sort of university portal? Now, it really depends from university to university, and in fact, program to program. There are some departments that encourage you to reach out to potential supervisors. So you will find this information more generally on the PhD sort of course page, web page, and they will mention whether they encourage it or whether they discourage it. Generally speaking, most universities sort of do encourage it. So if they haven't written anything on the website, reach out to a potential supervisor, even if it is just to introduce yourself, even if you're not saying anything specific about the PhD, but just to introduce yourself and be like, this is the work that I'm doing, and this is how it aligns with your work, and you would love to sort of work with them, right? Now, if the website specifically says that you're not allowed to approach potential supervisors, then don't, because then that would, you never know how the person that you are approaching is going to react and how they're going to take it forward. In that case, try reaching out to alumni from that program. So find sort of, people who have done that PhD program or are doing that PhD program on LinkedIn, etc., to find sort of informal guidance on how to approach supervisors. So just to summarize the answer, it's a good idea to reach out to potential supervisors, unless the university has actually discouraged you from reaching out to them, or unless the university sort of categorically says that you are not allowed to do so. And as I said, we'll have more guidance on PhD applications in subsequent sessions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Samir. I'm just going to take the last question from Fatma, and then we'll have to wrap up. And I'll just answer Hamza Jamil's question at the end. Yes, Fatma, go ahead.
No, I'm really sorry. I don't have any question. Thank you.
Okay,
It's
thank you so
just
much.
for-
Thank you so much. Hamza dropped a question regarding a CV. If you go to the US one, follows a standard North American template. You can follow the template. If you look in Harvard resume templates, you will find a lot of North American standardized resume. If you go on Oxford and UCL, Oxford resume template, UCL resume template, there's not a you can the best way of resume is to pinpoint how you can provide the best information from your side. Is that these are like what the trend is within those specific contexts and areas. So it makes it easier for the reviewer. And for the European, you go to the European Europass is what the resource you go to create a European formatted resume. All of these are like optional recommendations, but be sure to represent your best course of work moving forward. So these is all the information from our side, from Project Edu Access, from all of us here. I hope all of you had a great time and hope to see you. So this is a series of conversation that will gonna keep happening. So join us on our YouTube page, join us on the Instagram page. It's a lot of other capable, strong people from across the world who are just trying to give back. So that's all from our side. Have a great day and thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hassan and Amna and everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.